much for the reality and the truth of your word. God, I thank you that you have just announced from the beginning that you have a plan of redemption and that you are coming to restore your kingdom on the earth. And I just pray for these women, God. I ask that your shofar, as it's been sounded in their hearts, that they would to feel the awakening, the stirring of their hearts to wake up, to be ready, to be alert, God, to be watchful and ready for the return of Messiah. We thank you that the time is near, that we don't have to be afraid. So I pray, God, that just for boldness to be upon them, that your spirit would fall upon them in boldness and power. God, that they would trust you in every circumstance, that they would not face the days ahead with fear, but just as the Proverbs 31 woman, that they would laugh at the days to come because they know, God, that you are victorious and that you are bringing your victory and your kingdom to the earth. So God, would you bless them? Would you anoint them? Would your spirit fall upon them? Would you use them to do great and mighty things for the kingdom of God? God, I pray that the message of trumpets would be alive in them, that they would heed the call, heed the warning, and that they would be alert and watchful and anticipate the return of our King. God, thank you for your many promises, for all your promises that are yes and amen. I just pray that you protect the seed of truth, that you wouldn't allow the enemy to steal, but God, that it would grow in their hearts, that they would be like trees firmly planted by rivers of living water, and that you would just flow freely through them to their families, to all those that are around, that you would place them to influence. God, may your light shine brightly, your love, and may out of their bellies flow rivers of living water. God, thank you for your promises. You're good, you're faithful. We honor you. In Yeshua's name.
Question. Could you, if you don't mind, just going a little bit more to, we don't have to wait for his kingdom to return. We have the authority now because of his spirit, because of Pentecost.
Yeah.
With the spirit and the power that Jesus overcoming death. Can you help just kind of go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so the kingdom of God, like I said, it begins inside of you, okay? The kingdom of God is advanced through the hearts of men and women, and it happens on a spiritual level before we see it manifest on a physical level. But God, that doesn't mean that it can't or it won't happen on a physical level, because many times it does. And so how I understand it is, we live in this, we still live in a sinful world, okay? We still live in the reality of a fallen world. And so we're still we still see sickness, we still see death, we still see these things because the kingdom hasn't come in its fullness. But that doesn't mean that we can't walk in that same authority and power. And really, it's a spiritual reality before it's a physical reality. And so how I appropriate that in my own life is that, God promises, and when Jesus came, he came to heal, he came to restore. And so I live my life with that same example of if there's sickness or if there's injury, if there's something, I'm going to first seek God's kingdom in that situation. If I don't see it manifest, I trust that God's timing is better than mine and he knows better than I do. But it's still this idea of I'm going to ask, So it's not a guarantee every single time because we live in a fallen world. And the fullness of his kingdom hasn't been realized on the earth, but it has been initiated, it has broken through. And to understand the kingdom of God, really think about a physical kingdom. Think about a king who rules in a castle, who has a kingdom, okay? Just think about that for a minute. So the king has a way that you're to live in his kingdom, okay? He has laws, okay? And then the king also has boundaries of his kingdom, okay? And if you don't want to live by the king's laws, you don't enter in his kingdom. You can't partake of his authority, his blessings. But if you submit to the rules of the kingdom and you live inside the kingdom of God, then you receive all the blessings and all the inheritance that are due you for the kingdom. So when we think about that and equate that to our lives with God, is that God has a way to live. God has commandments. God has truths that are to rule our lives. But if we don't submit to God's ways, we're not going to enter into his kingdom. We're not going to be partakers of his blessing, of his promises. But if we submit our lives to the rule and the authority of God as King, and we do our best to obey his commands by the power of the Spirit in us, then we are going to see the blessings of God. We're going to see the provisions of God. We're going to enter into the kingdom. And the kingdom it works on a spiritual level and on a physical level. And really the blessing and the promise is Jesus, and that's enough. So even if I have to go through the fire, it is enough that I have Jesus. He is my peace. He is my shelter. He is what I'm longing for. So even in the midst of realities that seem contrary to what it would be if God was ruling and reigning, I have, in my spirit, I am fully covered. And I know who my God is. Okay, and so there's this peace that surpasses understanding, that guards my heart and my mind, and I know that I'm in his kingdom. And that's what the part, Paul says in Romans, that the kingdom of God is righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. So on one level, we have the truth of God's spiritual kingdom that is available to us as believers every single day and every single moment. Then we also have the other side of the reality that there are times when God's kingdom breaks through the physical because the reality of his kingdom is greater than the reality that we see. Even if our situation declares that there's something wrong, let's say you have a child with special needs, the reality that you see is that your child is limited. But the spiritual reality is that God has healed him. That God's kingdom, when his authority comes, he is going to be whole. The shalom of God means wholeness in every area. So I believe that God's kingdom, his reality, is greater than our spiritual reality. Even if we don't see it, we keep asking, we keep pressing in, believing that his kingdom will come in fullness one day. Maybe it'll come today. Maybe it won't, but we keep asking. And I've seen, like, the Azusa Street Revival. I just bought a book. Dr. Booker, the Rice recommended I buy it because he wanted me to see what was happening, and started to read it, and these crazy miracles. There was literally a glory cloud that rested on this warehouse where they were praying. And limbs were growing back. Cancer tumors were falling off. Like miraculous things were happening because God's presence was there. And that's the hope and that's the promise that we have for his kingdom reign, is that when he comes and restores all things, that's it. There's no more sickness. There's no more death. There's no more fear. There's no more hindrances. He brings his perfect shalom. So I don't know if that helps you at all, because it's really one of those tensions. Like, I can't sit here and say that if you do this and you walk by the Spirit, that every time you declare God's kingdom over something, that it's going to happen in the way that we think it will. But I would encourage you to ask. I would encourage you to say, God, clothe me with your power. Even before I do a teaching, I'm saying, God, immerse me in your power. Immerse me in your spirit, because I have a task. I have a word that needs to go forth, and I can't do it in my own strength. It's only done by the Spirit of God. And so sometimes the bringing God's kingdom looks much different than healing and signs and wonders. It looks like teaching, or it looks like encouraging, or it looks like speaking life into a situation. So it looks a lot of different ways. So I don't know if that helps at all.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's go into small groups.
It's kind of late.